welcome to Random Stream, where we just gonna dive into the randomness of internet and randomly select one of these platforms to do so. And the best part is, um, with so many different options, we have different types of content on every platform, obviously, but at the same time, these various um platforms as well as the content we're going to dive into shows us different perspective of the world, right? Like I'm sure on Twitter it's always some sort of conflict around politics and religion and whatnot, everything, I guess, cultural wars, real wars. Whereas on IMDb, you're gonna find just comments, reviews from angry, frustrated, or maybe like someone who loved the movie or show. There's a whole spectrum there as well. Reddit is kind of all over the place. Reddit do have more fun crowd compared to Facebook or Twitter for that matter. Reddit is good at trolling and also pretty good at diving deeper into a particular topic. Um, and Wikipedia, everyone knows what Wikipedia is. It has such a powerful presence all over the world. It's synonymous with some sort of fact checking website. Even though Wikipedia have its own flaws and its own hierarchy, which creates more biases and corruption within the management and all that things. But still, I feel that at least Wikipedia get maybe like 70 to 80% of the times right. I have no data to back that claim per se, but I feel that Wikipedia is a good source to start any research, right? Because they not only have their own flow of article, but also they tell you where they got the information from, or they're gonna quote the source, and that helps you to go to different sources and figure it out by yourself. So in that sense, Wikipedia is good. But again, like I said, it's an organization at the end of the day and filled with humans. And wherever there are humans, there are always going to be some sort of human error, and that cannot be ruled out. Anyhow, let's click to spin and see which platform we should explore. Reddit, Reddit, Reddit. I like Reddit. Great. So, what's going on? New content dropping this month on Prime Gaming. I'm sure that's a promotion. US opens antitrust probe into Ticketmaster. Okay. I'm not like super familiar with what's going on here, but I think Ticketmaster is buying out the competition. So um, the the management or the government is rather now we're gonna check this out. We're gonna make sure that uh, you're not creating a monopoly or something, So that totally makes sense. I want to very quickly check something here. So let's see. All right, so U.S. opens antitrust probe into Ticketmaster, as per New York Times. So, the US Justice Department has opened an antitrust investigation into Ticketmaster's owner, Live Nation Entertainment. The New York Times reported on Friday after the company's sale of Taylor Swift concert tickets this week overwhelmed its website. Of course. That's it. Okay. Nice. What else is going on? Eli Lilly, CEO, says insulin tweep flap probably signals need to bring costs down. Yeah, that's funny. And not the onion. Okay, let's check out this subreddit. Sadly, this is not the onion. I like that. Real news. An unreal deal. Get over 90% of our regular monthly price when you subscribe to the Washington Post today. 99 cents a month. No, thank you. Scientists fed dairy cows cannabis to see what would happen. Okay. Oh, oh. Shoot. I am having a technical issue. Okay, let's check. All right. Yeah, I might have to change some of the settings here because clearly it wasn't. All right, so we should be live. Yeah, we should be back. Cool. All right, so let's see what's happening here. Scientists fed dairy cows cannabis to see what would happen. Kind of curious what did happen. So, dairy cows fed a diet containing industrial hemp experienced several physical and behavioral changes, including increased yawning, salivation, and unsteady movements, according to a study. The authors of the study, which was published in the journal Nature Food, said the findings could have implications for human health as the popularity of industrial hemp products grows, although more research is needed to assess the risks. Industrial hemp is a type of cannabis plant that is cultivated for a wide variety of uses, including textiles, paper, cosmetics, food, biofuel, biodegradable plastics, construction materials, food, and animal feed. One of the fastest growing plants on earth, hemp, which originated in Central Asia before spreading to the Mediterranean and other parts of the world, has been cultivated by humans for thousands of years. Hemp is the same species of plant as Cannabis sativa, which is used to produce the drugs marijuana and hashish. But hemp has much lower levels of the cannabinoid delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, the psychoactive substance responsible for the high effect of weed. Hemp also contains other cannabinoids, a class of substances found in the cannabis plants, such as cannabidiol, which is CBD, which is not psychoactive like THC, but can produce some pharmacological effects. In the United States, hemp is legally defined as cannabis sativa containing 0.3% or less of THC. Usually, hemp derived products intended for consumption do not contain enough THC to create the high traditionally associated with marijuana. The industrial hemp sector is growing rapidly, and several hemp derived products have been launched in recent years, including animal feed. In 2018, the US legalized the production of hemp as an agricultural commodity at the federal level, which, while removing it from the list of controlled substances as part of the 2018 Farm Bill. While hemp production was legalized with the passage of the bill, no hemp ingredients have yet been approved for use in pet or livestock animal feed in the United States by the Food and Drug Administration. But a handful of states allow the feeding of hemp to animals, and there is interest in developing these kinds of products. Not all cannabinoids are psychoactive, but the proliferation of hemp products raises consumer safety issues because this class of substances interacts with the animal and human endocannabinoid system. Some veterinary, feed industry, and animal safety groups, such as the Association of American Feed Control Officials, AFCO, and the American Veterinary Medical Association, AVMA, have warned against feeding animals hemp products until research has demonstrated safety. It is our position that sufficient scientific research to support the safety and utility of hemp in animal feed must be completed prior to any federal or state approval. The AFCO, AVMA, and several other co-signed organizations wrote in a letter to agriculture leaders and state policymakers this past February. According to these groups, more research is needed to understand whether hemp ingredients are safe for animals when consumed frequently for extended periods. It is unclear if cannabinoids in industrial hemp can be transferred from animal feed into the resulting products, such as meat, milk, or eggs, and whether this could pose any health risk for humans. Amid the current interest in developing industrial hemp animal feed products, a team of German researchers decided to explore the issue by conducting a study on dairy cows. The researchers analyzed the effects of giving feed containing industrial hemp to 10 milk producing dairy cows. They used two different varieties of hemp in the experiment, both of which contained less than 0.2% THC, below the maximum legal level in the European Union, although one had a much higher concentration of cannabinoids overall. The scientists then analyzed the milk, blood, and feces of the cows while assessing other physiological factors and observing their behavior. The team found that feeding the cows a diet containing up to 0.92 kilograms of industrial hemp with a very low cannabinoid concentration per animal per day had no noticeable effect on the livestock's health. But the results showed that cows fed a diet with 0.84 or 1.68 kilograms of a cannabinoid-rich variety of industrial hemp displayed behavior and physical changes. Of course they did. These included increased yawning, salivation, unsteady movements, nasal secretions, pronounced tongue play, and reddening of the nictitating membrane, a transparent third eyelid present in some animals, as well as other effects. We observed significant changes in respiratory and heart rate, as well as a reduction of feed intake and milk yield. Robert Piper, an author of the study who is with Berlin's German Federal Institute for Risk Assessment, told Newsweek. The researchers observed changes to feed intake and milk yield from the second day of exposure to the cannabinoid-rich industrial hemp. All changes observed disappeared within 2 days of discontinuing feeding with the hemp. Analysis of the milk that the cows produced showed that a transfer of cannabinoids, including THC, from the hemp to the dairy product had occurred. Wow. The researchers also found that this transfer had taken place to such an extent that the quantity of THC in the milk reached levels that could exceed the acute reference dose in some consumer groups if it was consumed by humans. The acute reference dose is the estimated amount of substance that can be ingested in a 24-hour period without any identifiable health risk. Higher intake levels are undesired since adverse effects may occur, Piper said. These exposures levels may especially affect the central nervous system. For example, increased sedation, impaired working memory performance, and mood alterations. Piper said that the effects experienced by the cows were most likely attributable to the intake of high amounts of cannabinoids from industrial hemp in the ration. However, the authors note that the effects cannot be traced to a specific cannabinoid or particular combinations of substances in the hemp. According to the authors, the study's results indicate that feeding industrial hemp, even with levels of less than 0.2% THC, in realistic rations to dairy cows has an influence on the physiology and behavior of these animals and could lead to THC concentrations in the milk that may pose a health risk for certain consumer groups. But the scientists said more research is needed to assess the impact of these cannabinoids. The scientific study was designed to investigate the question of the extent to which a transition into cow's milk can basically occur when industrial hemp is fed, Piper said. The study does not allow any conclusions to be drawn as to whether there is a health risk from the consumption of milk on the market. Cool. Wow. And what are the comments for this article? Humans driving by moose, stoned cow. Holy shit, I understood that. Yeah, that is funny. To item, the cows became stoned. They also made THC tainted milk. No, that's the perfect milk for Lucky Charms. I'm gonna try to eat cheese. Yeah, that's a good line. I like that. Cheese abyss incoming. Alright, what is this lunacy? Human breast milk has cannabinoids in it, even if the woman was never exposed to weed in her life. Endocannabinoids are an integral part of our physical health, and there is no evidence whatsoever that other cannabinoids are any more dangerous than what we already have in us. I don't know, Kensho28. I don't know if you're right or uh, let's see. That's not a logical statement. We have water in us, so water is safe. We have endogenous opioids too. See the problem? What problem? Opioids and water are both super toxic compared to weed. People die from water poisoning, not drowning, but nobody ever dies from weed. What? There's a different statement. We have endogenous X, so X is safe. This is a logical fallacy, as I demonstrated clearly. We have endogenous opioids. I get it. You like weed. We all like weed. There is a simple no need to lie for Jesus. Kensho wrote back, that wasn't my point though. And breast milk is designed to be given to infants, unlike opioids. Added, guess he ran away because he could figure it out. Cannabinoids are naturally and normally present in breast milk, so it's just weird to say that tainted the milk. It's like saying I tainted your OJ with citric acid from a tangerine. To which Get Lost Map says breast milk contains endogenous opioids. Pick up a book, for fuck's sake. You're way out of your depth with this naturalistic fallacy stuff. Alright, enough Reddit fight. Let's check out some other. Sadly, this is not The Onion. Man gave informant cheese doodles, not meth, in drug bust. Man has home stolen as property and everything inside sold from under him. Vote against interracial marriage despite Asian wife. Of course. I'm not surprised. Mitch McConnell is uh, the weakest man in Congress. Osaka girls bar manager accused of making teens duel in violation of 1889 law. China accuses Canada of acting in condescending manner. Well, none of these are kind of funny, but Wimbledon to let women wear dark undershorts. Well, we gotta get to the bottom of this. Wimbledon Wimbledon relaxes all white policy to let female players wear dark colored undershorts. I didn't even realize they had like all white policy even for undergarments. The All England club has relaxed its all white clothing rule to relieve a potential source of anxiety for players on their period. Uh, Makes sense. Women and girls can now wear mid or dark colored undershorts provided they are no longer than their skirt. Discussions took place with the WTA, clothing manufacturers, and medical teams after players voiced concerns. Former Olympic champion Monica Puig previously spoke out the mental stress of having to wear white. The Puerto Rican who won her Olympic title in 2016 also said she used to pray the championships did not coincide with her period. Britain's Heather Watson, who was one of the first to speak about the impact periods can have on performance, said the issue was frequently discussed privately. It is absolutely something the players talk about around Wimbledon because of the all whites, Watson told BBC Sport in June. I think people speak about it a lot, maybe not to the media, but among ourselves, for sure. Sally Bolton, the All England club's chief executive, said, "We are committed to supporting the players and listening to their feedback as to how they can perform at their best. It is our hope that this rule adjustment will help players focus purely on their performance by relieving a potential source of anxiety." Okay, this is the move comes after Stoke City, West Bromwich Albion, Swansea, and Manchester City all introduced dark colored shorts for their women's teams, while Bristol City will wear red shorts with their home kit for the first time when they play Birmingham at Aston Gate on Saturday. Test cricketers have also spoken about the anxiety of bleeding in their whites while playing. The All England club has also announced the 2022 championships recorded a surplus of £47.141 million, the second highest on record. 90% of that surplus, which is £42.427 million, will be distributed to the LTA to invest in British tennis. Wow. 90% of a surplus amount. That's nice. The public ticket ballot for next year's championships has just closed, and the club says it has received a record number of entries. It reports renewed strong levels of interest from overseas, and especially from the US, Ireland, Italy, and Germany. That will come as a relief, as even though this year's tournament was the most attended in Wimbledon history due to the introduction of play on the middle Sunday, and the All England club said the number of people joining the queue had fallen. One of the theories put forward at the time was the difficulty of traveling from overseas during a pandemic. Meanwhile, former British number one Laura Robson and Jamie Delgado, who played the Wimbledon for a record 23 consecutive years, will join the club in December, focusing on international player relations. They will have a remit to travel to overseas tournament to foster collaboration and engagement with the tennis community. Their diplomatic skills will be sorely needed as the club tries to repair relationships damaged by the decision to ban Russian and Belarusian players from this year's championship. All right. So that happened. Now women can wear dark undies. David Beckham claims Qatar World Cup a platform for inclusivity and tolerance. Seriously, David? Madison Cawthron vacates offices before end of term. Constituents' calls go unanswered. Alabama calls off execution after difficulties inserting IV. Okay, I thought when it says it's not onion, I thought it's gonna be more like a parody in the reality. I mean, a lot of that is doesn't look sounds like parody. What else do I want to go through? Next fucking level. Leah Shatkever breaks into Guinness World Record by eating a whole burrito in 35.26 seconds. Damn. Good job, Leah. Okay, let's check this out. Next fucking level. A bighorn dog also wants to have some fun. This amazing in-depth creation of Zinogre armor from Monster Hunter. This guy is been practicing hard. Yeah, bro. Good luck with that. People have trained dogs to drive vehicles. Yep. Yep. Needed that. Freebird solo. What happened? Okay. I have no idea. I don't have context for any of those songs, so it's lost on me. Carving a gemstone on a Lindau Rose engine, a new model of a centuries old turning latch. Tree cut land perfectly. Oh, that's nice. That's satisfying. jump without parachute. This was a story from like a few years back. I'm blanking on that dude's name. 3 paintings in 3 minutes.
3-minute paintings. Oh my god. What do you got?
That's impressive. That was a whale. Must be thrilling. Alright, I'm gonna go back and check out some other subreddit. White people Twitter. Uh, Alright, let's explore some world news. Sky News, I think it's some Australian news, posted where Victoria and Adam from Sky News UK's forensics team. We use OSINT techniques to verify, investigate, and explain global news stories to. What? Tell me the news. Don't tell me who you are. Protesters in Iran set fire to Khomeini's ancestral home. Qatar bans beer sales at World Cup Stadium. Biden administration says Saudi prince has immunity in Khashoggi killing lawsuit. Ireland asks members of Russian embassy in Dublin to leave. China pushes back on FBI claims of Chinese police stations in US. Sweden finds explosive traces at Nord Stream blast site, confirms sabotaged. Tuvalu starts to digitize their nation as rising seas threaten existence. Tuvalu said on Thursday that it plans to build a digital version of itself, replicating island and landmarks and preserving its history and culture as rising sea levels threaten to submerge the tiny Pacific nation. That is interesting. Tuvalu starts to digitize their nation as rising seas threaten existence. So this is a digital replica of Te Afualiku seen during Tuvalu Minister of Justice, Communication and Foreign Affairs Simon Kofe's COP27 address. Tuvalu said on Thursday that it plans to build a digital version of itself, replicating islands and landmarks and preserving its history and culture as rising sea levels threaten to submerge the tiny Pacific island nation. Tuvalu's foreign minister Simon Kofe told the COP27 climate summit earlier in the week that it was time to look at alternate solutions for his country's survival, and this included Tuvalu becoming the first digitized nation in the metaverse, an online realm that uses augmented and virtual reality to help users interact. Kofi, who grabbed global attention at last year's COP26 when he addressed the conference standing knee deep in the sea, told Reuters that his video address from the digital twin of the islet Afualiku had gone viral, adding that viewers had mixed feelings. You're shocked, but then also excited about this new technology that we are exploring, Kofi said. Tuvalu will be the first country to replicate itself in the metaverse, but follows both the city of Seoul and the island nation of Barbados, which last year said they would enter the metaverse to provide administrative and consular services, respectively. A group of 9 islands and 12,000 people halfway between Australia and Hawaii, Tuvalu has long been a cause celebre for the risk of climate change and rising sea levels. Up to 40% of the capital district is underwater at high tide, and the entire country is forecast to be underwater by the end of the century. Kofi said he hoped that the creation of a digital nation would allow Tuvalu to continue to function as a state even if it becomes completely submerged. As expected from a country that is at the forefront of climate, we need to think outside the box. We need to pioneer some of these initiatives, he added. This is important as the government begins efforts to ensure that Tuvalu continues to be recognized internationally as a state and its maritime boundaries, and the resources within those waters are maintained even if the islands are submerged. Kofi said that 7 governments have agreed to continued recognition, but there were challenges if Tuvalu goes under, as it is a new area of international law. Wow, that's heartbreaking. I mean, a lot of countries are going through very difficult times. And on the other end, fans paid to attend World Cup by Qatar have daily allowance cancelled. What? I'm not even sure what that even means. Fans paid to attend World Cup by Qatar. Okay, so Qatar paid their countrymen or citizens, rather. Ukraine war is your problem too. France President Macron tells Asian countries. Uh, Netherlands protest despicable Russian response to MH17 verdict. No idea what that. Gates Foundation pledged 7 billion for Africa as Ukraine war diverts donor cash. US and Russia to meet in Egypt to discuss key nuclear arms control agreement later this month. Russian soldier willing to expose the rot at the core of criminal war started by Moscow. Finland seizes 3 Russian-owned private jets. Poland will not give Russians visa to attend OSCE meeting spokesman. Zelensky rejects Russia's desire for short truce in Halifax address. Come on. Yeah, a lot of world news, but mostly just talking about the war. Alright, I'm done with world news. What is futurology? future studies. What? Uh, the world's baby shortfall is so bad that the labor shortage will last for years. Major employment firms predict the world's baby shortfall, again, so the world have fewer babies. We are 8 billion. Uh, US declares lab grown meat safe to eat in groundbreaking move. I am kind of excited about that because I'm vegetarian, so that could be my chance to taste a meat which is actually kind of sort of meat. Uh, US can reach 100% clean power by 2035, DOE finds, but tough reliability and land use questions lie ahead. Can universal basic income address homelessness? That could be a good article to review. All right. Universal basic income. Can a universal basic income help address homelessness? So, an alternate approach to welfare could replace policies that are failing to address homelessness. And existing policies are failing to address rising homelessness. And the photo is from Shutterstock. Seriously? I mean, if it's such a big issue. Well, this is for Sydney, but Nadia, I think you look like you're in Australia. So okay, so I don't blame you for getting Shutterstock photo. Otherwise, I'm sure there are a lot of homeless people in every U.S. city, and I'm not even sure if you're talking about just U.S. or other countries. So let's check it out. Homelessness is an increasing problem across the developed world, and existing policy responses are failing to make an impact. In Australia, for instance, homelessness has increased despite growing investment in predominantly crisis oriented specialist homelessness service. Employment insecurity and the rising cost of living are also taking a toll and expanding the profile of those at risk of homelessness. Anglicare's Rental Affordability Snapshot 2022 shows that people on low incomes and single parents are especially struggling to meet their housing costs. In a paper published in the Journal of Sociology, Dr. Andrew Clark at the School of Social Sciences at UNSW Arts, Design and Architecture considers whether a universal basic income could help address the shortcomings of existing policy responses to homelessness. The paper synthesizes existing research on homelessness in Australia, highlighting the limitations of current policies and how a UBI can help address them. Evidence shows our current responses to homelessness are failing. We put more and more money into homelessness services, and yet overall homelessness continues to rise, says Dr. Clark. This is a sign we have to do something different in our approach to homelessness. A universal basic income policy could be part of a new and more effective solution, which could help address some of the structural issues that led to homelessness. A UBI is a periodic cash payment unconditionally delivered to everyone in the society without a means test or work requirements, and regardless of their circumstances, says Dr. Clark. It's a policy idea that is gaining traction internationally in response to worsening socioeconomic insecurity, and in the last 5 years, various UBI pilots have taken place in Scotland, Netherlands, Finland. A UBI is an opportunity to transform the logic of our welfare system and begin addressing the structural causes of poverty and homelessness. Implementing a UBI could help address the income side of the housing crisis driving homelessness, but it would need to be coupled with other policies such as rent controls and increases to social housing supply, Dr. Clark says. Why our current policy approach can't address homelessness. The OECD reported in 2020 that around 1.9 million people are homeless across the developed world, causing profound impacts on individuals, communities, and placing burdens on our health, justice, and social service systems. Australia's current policy responses are failing to address homelessness because they are too concerned with providing targeted support and ignore structural factors, says Dr. Clark. Our current policies provide a temporary safety net that only steps in when housing and labor markets don't work out for people. They are highly targeted and conditional, which is the opposite of a universal, unconditional provision proposed by UBI policy. Current policies only really provide targeted support to people once they are already experiencing homelessness or are at imminent risk of homelessness. This is the opposite of universal measures, like a UBI, which ensure that everyone's basic needs are met, thus helping prevent homelessness risk from emerging, says Dr. Clark. The problem with an approach that only provides targeted support is that it treats homelessness as purely the result of the personal circumstances of support recipients. The fact that they have chronic health issues, are fleeing a violent relationship, lack financial or domestic skills, etc. However, these circumstances only result in homelessness because people's incomes are inadequate or insecure and housing is so unaffordable. Homelessness is first and foremost a housing problem. Dr. Clark says we have to pair existing targeted measures with universal policies that address the structural causes of homelessness, a shortage of affordable housing options, and people's ability to pay for the housing they require. And then there is stigma and social insecurity of targeted welfare. Relying too heavily on targeted homeless and welfare programs also creates stigma and shame for those who need to access support. By focusing on fixing people's personal problems and circumstances, targeted homelessness services can inadvertently imply that individuals are themselves to blame for their situation. If a person seeks support from a homelessness service because their rent's gone up, but all that service can offer is financial, counseling, or mental health support, that person will likely feel like they are the problem, says Dr. Clark. This can be a really stigmatizing experience and can lead to people avoiding reaching out for support. Society currently thinks of people experiencing homelessness as deficient individuals, and that if you need welfare, you have failed as a person. Naturally, many who are experiencing homelessness don't want to be identified that way. How can a UBI help address homelessness? Dr. Clark says a UBI can help address homelessness because it will circumvent stigma associated with needs based welfare. But most importantly, it will help address structural issues that drive homelessness, the lack of and inability to pay for affordable housing. Receiving UBI payments won't be a stigmatizing experience because payments are offered to all, says Dr. Clark. If everyone is receiving a basic income, then no one can be marked out as different or deficient. Also, if payments are universal, then there's no need for a massive, inefficient bureaucracy that only exists to monitor people in order to make sure they only receive what they are entitled to. What a basic income can do is guarantee a way of addressing the income side of the homelessness equation, Dr. Clark says. It can bolster low incomes and address the income insecurity that comes with intermittent casualized work, a growing reality for many individuals. How else can we tackle homelessness? While a UBI can contribute to addressing the income side of homelessness, it can't address the other structural driver, which is a lack of affordable housing, the supply side. There are two more things required to make a UBI work in addressing homelessness. One is we need to boost affordable housing stock outside of the private market. This means more social housing, Dr. Clark says. We would also need to control market fluctuations and prevent the UBI from being absorbed by rising rents. Without rent controls, a UBI would potentially be soaked up by further rent increases. Overall, a UBI should be a serious policy consideration when it comes to addressing homelessness, especially as our current approach is increasingly costing more and not working. All right. So, can a universal basic income help address homelessness? I got nothing out of this article. I mean, of course, the article uh, repeats the same point over and over that the UBI can at least address the money equation of homelessness. At the same time, there are a lot of different factors which Nadia just you know talked about or touch based on. But yeah, can UBI help? I mean, I think UBI is a good concept, but not in the way pictured here. Regardless, let's check this out. Everywhere basic income has been tried in one map. Okay, there's a long article, but we should be able to go through this. So, Grace receives $22 a month as part of a 12-year universal basic income study run by the charity Give Directly that began in October 2016 in Western Kenya. Everywhere basic income has been tried in one map. Which countries have experimented with basic income and what were the results? The idea of a basic income was, for decades, something of a policy fantasy, but the last few years have seen it become less outlandish, to the point where we now have many limited basic income programs up and running around the world, perhaps a dry run for a broader embrace of the policy in the coming years. The general idea that the government should give every citizen a regular infusion of free money with no strings attached has been around since the 16th century, but it's recently experienced a remarkable resurgence. Advocates ranging from tech billionaire Mark Zuckerberg to libertarian economist Milton Friedman to former Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang have endorsed it. The COVID-19 pandemic has given the idea fresh momentum, with the crisis generating so much financial loss and uncertainty, and with federal stimulus packages failing to meet the needs of the millions. Advocates are arguing that citizens desperately need some sort of guaranteed income. And around the world, countries are running pilot programs to test it. And this photo is from Andrew Yang's campaign in Manchester, New Hampshire on February 8th, 2020. Yang touted a universal basic income during his presidential campaign. With a few exceptions, Kenya, where a big experiment in universal basic income is underway, Iran, which has a nationwide unconditional cash transfer program, and Alaska, which gives an annual dividend to everyone in the state. Basic income programs are offering money to small groups of a few hundred or a few thousand people, not an entire polity. In other words, they offer a basic income, but not a universal basic income. These small scale trials are necessary because governments want to have a good sense of what the effects will be before they start shelling out many billions or trillions of dollars. Proponents of basic income argue it's the best way to end poverty. Just give everyone money. Some also say it will help society cope with a coming era of automation induced joblessness. And the evidence so far suggests that getting a basic income tends to boost happiness, health, social attendance, and trust in social institutions while reducing crime. But critics worry that it will disincentivize work, cheating economies out of productivity and cheating individuals out of the sense of meaning that work can bring. Plus, they say It's just plain unaffordable for the government to pay every citizen enough to live on regardless of whether they work. The evidence so far does not support these critics, as you'll see. Below are the places that are trying or have tried some version of basic income. You'll find that only unconditional cash transfers are included here. Some 130 countries, from Mexico to Italy to Uganda, have instituted conditional cash transfers, which may require recipients to send their kids to school or go for health checkups. Although these programs have proven beneficial in some cases, they are not the subject of this piece. Note that most of the basic income projects here are funded by governments, but a few are funded by private donors. Scroll down for details on how each place gave out or is giving out free money and what behavioral effects it seems to have on the recipients. United States. The US has tried a few basic income experiments, but most have been short lived, small scale trials. Alaska is an exception. Since 1982, the state has given each citizen an annual check just for being alive. Alaska is an exception. Since 1982, the state has given each citizen an annual check just for being alive, effectively wiping out extreme poverty. The money, which can range from around $2,000 per person when oil prices are high to $1,000 in cheap gas years, comes from the Alaska Permanent Fund, a state owned investment fund financed by oil revenues. Economists investigated whether the payment was leading people to work less and found that the dividend had no effect on employment overall. It has apparently had an effect on fertility, encouraging families to have more kids. It's also had some unexpected effects on the state's politics. For instance, Catherine Hayes demonstrated using Alaska lawmaker to fund a full oil wealth fund check, known locally as the PFD or Permanent Fund Dividend, on July 8, 2019 in Wasilla, Alaska. Another long-running program in the eastern band of Cherokee Indians, Casino Dividend in North Carolina. Since 1997, revenue from a casino on tribal land has been given to every tribal member, no strings attached. Each person gets, on average, somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000 per year. Economists found that it doesn't make them work less. It does lead to improved education and mental health, and decreased addiction and crime. Between 1968 and 1974, the US experimented with giving cash to around 7,500 people in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Iowa, North Carolina, Seattle, Denver, and Gary, Indiana. The money proved beneficial to recipients but did modestly reduce the hours they worked. Dylan Matthews has explained for Vox why we shouldn't make too much of that slight reduction. In 2019, Andrew Yang tried out a sensationalistic yet effective method of promoting basic income, giving it out himself. First, he promised to give $1,000 per month for 12 months to someone who retweets and follows him on Twitter. Then, on the presidential debate stage, he announced that he'd give away $1,000 per month to 10 randomly selected families. We don't know exactly what effects the cash may have had on the recipients because the giveaway weren't formal research studies, but they're worth mentioning because they drew a lot of attention to the concept of a basic income. What about current projects? Stockton, California, is in the midst of an 18-month experiment. It's giving $500 per month to 125 people. The money comes from individual and foundation philanthropy, with the initial $1 million in funding coming from the Economic Security Project. The first batch of data shows the recipients are mostly spending the money on food, clothes, and utility bills. Y Combinator, which previously ran a small trial in Oakland, California, is now planning to start a new trial elsewhere in the US. Canada. Between 1974 and 1979, Canada ran a randomized controller trial in the province of Manitoba, choosing one farming town, Dauphin, as a saturation site where every family was eligible to participate in a basic income experiment. The basic income seemed to benefit residents' physical and mental health. There was a decline in doctor visits and an 8.5% reduction in the rate of hospitalization, and high school graduation rates improved too. Nevertheless, the project, known as MINCOM and funded jointly by the provincial and federal governments, was cancelled after 4 years when a more conservative party came into power. 4 decades later, another Canadian province, Ontario, was willing to try again. In 2017, the Liberal government launched a basic income pilot project in 3 cities: Hamilton, Lindsay, and Thunder Bay. It was supposed to help 4,000 low income people and last for 3 years. Seen in the picture here, Jody Dean with her daughter Madison in Hamilton, Ontario on November 21st, 2017. Dean, a Canadian mother of three, received her first basic income check 1 month prior. She said the extra money gave her family the breathing room to not have to stress to put food on the table. All right, Dean. Okay, but then a new progressive conservative government came into power, led by Ontario Premier Doug Ford. In 2018, they cancelled the project after hearing from staff that it disincentivized participants from finding work. However, the pilot had only been active a short time, not long enough to gather the data required to support that claim. A handful of participants have since filed a class action lawsuit against the government. All right, moving on to Brazil. Brazil has been experimenting with cash transfers to poor families since the 1990s, and it now runs the massive Bolsa Familia program, which gives millions of people cash transfers. This isn't a UBI since the transfers are conditional. Recipients are expected to keep their children in school and visit health clinics. But the massive program has formed the backdrop for Brazilian experiments in unconditional cash transfers. From 2008 to 2014, a Brazilian non-profit called the Recivitas Institute administered a basic income funded by private donors in the village of Quatinga Velho. 100 residents received 30 reais, about $8 per month. This year, around 52,000 people in Brazil city of Marica are receiving a basic income under a new program called the Renda Básica de Cidadania, Citizens Basic Income. Each will receive 130 reais per month, which is around $35, which is expected to lift many above the poverty line. Because the money is coming out of the city budget, mostly from oil royalties, this program has the potential to stick around for a long time. It currently has no end date. Finland. In 2017, the Finnish government decided to see what would happen if it chose 2,000 unemployed citizens at random and gave them a check of 560 euros, which is close to $635 per month, back in 2020 at least, for 2 years. Participants were assured they'd keep receiving the money if they got a job. As it turned out, the income didn't help them get jobs, but it did make them feel happier and less stressed. The recipients also reported that they felt more trust toward other people and social institutions, from political parties to the police to the courts, than they did before getting a basic income. Finland ended the trial in 2018. In 2014, Germany. In 2014, the nonprofit Mein Grundeinkommen, My Basic Income, used crowdfunding to set up a basic income raffle. By the end of 2019, it had awarded almost 500 basic incomes to people all over the world who had submitted their names. Each got about $1,100 per month for a year. According to Fast Company, 80% of recipients said the income made them less anxious. More than half said it enabled them to continue their education, and 35% said they now feel more motivated at work. In 2019, the nonprofit Sanctin Ons Fry kicked off another basic income project funded entirely by private donors. For 3 years, 250 randomly chosen people in Germany will receive unconditional transfers of up to $466 per month, while 250 others act as a control group. Against the backdrop of the COVID 19 pandemic, Germany started a new basic income experiment in August. 120 Germans are receiving 1,200 euros every month for 3 years. They'll fill out questionnaires about how the cash benefit is affecting their emotional well being, home life, and work life. The responses will then be compared with the responses of a control group of 1,380 people who are not receiving a basic income. The German Institute for Economic Research is conducting the study, and it's funded by 140,000 private donations collected by Mein Grundeinkommen. Spain. In 2017, Spain's B Mincom experiment started offering a minimum guaranteed income to 1,000 households randomly selected from some of Barcelona's poorest districts. Under the 2 year randomized controlled trial, households could receive up to 1,675 euros per month. There was also a control group of 383 households. The experiment split up the household into four modalities of participation: conditional, which means you get the cash but you have to participate in certain social programs; unconditional, which means you get the cash with no strings attached; then limited, which means if you earn extra income through work, that reduces the amount of cash you get; and non-limited, extra income does not reduce the amount of cash. Preliminary results showed that the effects varied a bit depending on different modalities, but across the board, the basic income boosted life satisfaction and mental health while making participants nearly more likely, not less likely, to find employment. With the arrival of COVID 19, the Spanish government launched a website in June offering payments of up to 1,015 euros to the poorest families in the country, some 850,000 households. The government isn't running this initiative as a research study per se, there's no control group, but it will continue to monitor the results and says it aims to keep the initiative going even after the pandemic induced recession ends. The Netherlands rather. In 2017, Utrecht and a few surrounding cities kicked off a basic income experiment with 250 recipients as part of a randomized controlled trial. Some recipients got the money, around $1,050 per month, unconditionally, while others had to do volunteer work. The researchers' aim is to figure out which way of delivering the financial assistance works best. Iran. In 2011, Iran rolled out a nationwide unconditional cash transfer program to compensate for the phase out of subsidies on bread, water, electricity, heating, and fuel. The government gave out sizable monthly payments to each family, 29% of the median household income on average. The program was later dialed back as some Iranians came to believe it was disincentivizing people to work. Yet economists found that the program did not affect labor supply in any appreciable way. The program is still running, and it's the only such program in the world to run nationwide. And then Kenya. The largest and longest UBI experiment in the world is taking place in Kenya, where the charity Give Directly is making payments to more than 20,000 people spread out across 245 rural villages. As part of this randomized controlled trial, which started in 2016, Recipients receive roughly 75 cents per adult per day, delivered monthly for 12 years. Some preliminary results will be available soon. In the meantime, we have already seen that in another Give Directly program in Kenya, cash transfers have stimulated the economy and benefited not only the recipients themselves, but also people in nearby villages. Samson, who's 72 years old, was at the time at his home in the Bondo region of Kenya on October 3rd, 2018. Samson receives $22 a month from the American NGO Give Directly. Namibia, between 2008 and 9, all residents below the age of 60 living in the Otjivero Omitara region of Namibia received a basic income 100 Namibian dollars, which is around $6.75 per person per month, no strings attached. Regardless of their socioeconomic status, funding came from private donors in Namibia and around the world. As a result, child malnutrition dropped and school enrollment rates went up, while poverty-related crime, like theft, fell, according to reports from BINE and Center for Public Impact. However, a lack of alignment with the national government meant that the pilot project was never rolled out nationwide. India. Between 2011 and 12, a pilot project in the state of Madhya Pradesh gave a basic income to some 6,000 Indians. The project, coordinated by the Self-Employed Women's Association and funded by UNICEF, included 2 studies. In the first study, every man, woman, and child in 8 villages received a monthly payment, 200 rupees, which comes to $2.8 for adults and 100 rupees for each child. After 1 year, the payments increased to 300 and 150 rupees, respectively. Meanwhile, 12 similar villages received no basic income, acting as a control group. In the second study, one tribal village received an income of 300 rupees per adult and 150 rupees per child for the entire trial. Another tribal village acted as a control. The results: receiving a basic income led to improved sanitation, nutrition, and school attendance. An Indian family walked by a barber shop in Orcha, Madhya Pradesh, in India on February 1st, 2012. China. In 2011, following years of budget surpluses and under pressure to help poor and elderly people, Hong Kong tried out a program called Scheme $6,000. All adults with a valid Hong Kong permanent identity card, some 6 million people, were eligible to receive a one-time giveaway of Hong Kong $6,000, which comes to $772 US dollars. The public had a host of complaints about the program. For example, that administrative costs were eating up too much of the money that could go to the citizens, and it only lasted 1 year. However, it was briefly revived in 2018 thanks to another budget surplus and round of pressure to help the needy. Macau, an autonomous region on the south coast of China, has been experimenting with basic income since 2008, when it began giving small but unconditional transfers to all residents, around 700,000 people, as part of a wealth partaking scheme. Each year, local residents get around 9,000 patakas, which is equivalent to around $1,128, and non-permanent residents get around 5,400 patakas. Unfortunately, critics say these sums are too paltry to make a real dent in poverty. Japan. Japanese billionaire Yusaku Maezawa announced in a January 1st tweet that he would give away 1 billion Japanese yen, which is about $9 million, to 1,000 random Twitter followers. His stated goal was to test the premise of a basic income. It's a serious social experiment, he said. Since the money was distributed in April, each recipient has had to fill out follow up surveys asking what impact the cash has had on their lives. The initial survey results show that recipients of the cash benefit are now 3.9 times more interested in launching a new business. Recipients saw a decrease in divorce rates from 1.5% to 0.6%, and more than 70% of recipients said they experienced a significant increase in happiness. Well, so there is that. Excuse me. Well, so everywhere basic income has been tried. And there have been quite a few places. Well, this was fun. I learned quite a few interesting things about universal basic income, as well as some of the world news and people who are exceptionally good at some of the talents they have, and I also learned how to keep myself warm in this chilly weather. And the secret is more drink. uh, well, that being said, I'm glad we did this, and uh, we'll be doing this again hopefully tomorrow, if not